Well, I'm chuckling through this story a little bit because I've done a little bit of reading on the Zechariah story, and I guess I'm thinking about today in the sense that you folks here, like you're keeners, let's be honest. You came out to worship today, and you're strong Canadians, and you, like, good for you. And the funny thing about Zechariah, though, he's a bit of a keener. He he's blameless before God. He goes to the temple, and he's the priestly sort, and he's doing all the right things. And yet, even as he's doing all the right things, he's not been blessed with a child. And sadly, in the biblical world, it's certainly not our understanding, but in the biblical world, actually, if you were barren and unable to have a child, that was kind of a sign that God wasn't too happy, which is kind of crazy, but that's some of the thinking at that time. But here's the thing about Zechariah, where I'm chuckling, is Mary gets her own little visitation from Gabriel, and she kind of questions, how can this be that I could have, this virgin birth? How can this be? And she doesn't get zapped like Zechariah does. Like, Zechariah's like, he's mute, and he's going to be mute until the baby's, till everything's okay. So he's left speechless. And I just think that's the funniest thing. If my wife could make me go mute like that, not be able to speak, it's a pretty funny story, actually. And yet the theologians try to wrestle with it and go, well, what does it mean to be silent before God? Well, believe it or not, as a talker like myself, often I am humbled by silence, and I know that you are as well, probably more often than me. But, a longtime friend was with me recently, and, we've known each other for a long time, but his child's dealing with not only addiction, but mental health issues, and, going along fine for a couple years, and then all of a sudden, a few weeks off the rails, and we have this phenomenal Canadian Mental Health Association next to Mount Sinai in Toronto, and his beloved is there, but, all of a sudden, as a parent, like, there's no communication. You're just hoping your child's not going to die on the streets, not going to commit suicide, and you just feel extremely hopeless. And I'm not the parent, I'm the friend, and you just feel very silent. What can you say? I'll pray for her, and you do, but you feel very muted and humbled. Especially when you start thinking about, I worry about some silly things about what my kids are up to, And I think this story for me helps me realize that silence is sometimes where we're left in life, where we just don't know what to say. And maybe that's the story here of Zechariah, that he does question, and that's what I like about him. He's questioning God. He should question God. And yet, the writers of the biblical times say, well, he paid a price for that. And maybe that's just part of life. There's some things we just don't have answers for. One of the things I really love about Trinity is I find there's a real healthy sense of humor in this congregation, a sense that we don't take ourselves too seriously. And so I'm going to tell you a funny little story. I was with a family profoundly, grieving that their loved one had died very suddenly, and only early 70s, and a profound teacher in town. And I looked to the nephew, because this gentleman never had family and the children, and I said to the family, can you tell me, I usually ask this question, what is something that your loved one has really taught you in life? Because I'm reading condolences from students all over Canada that are profound. And the nephew looked at me, and he said, without batting an eye, he taught me how to curse. Bleep, 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 Jesus Christ. He literally, I'm not giving you the bleep, bleep, bleep. And he smiled. He says, no, I'm honest. And he said, he really taught me how to be honest. And, there's something quite refreshing about that. So I had a service, and his best friend comes to speak, happens to be a doctor from the Bruce County way. They've been friends for like 40 years. And the doctor gets up there, and he looks over to me, the reverend, and again, honesty. He goes, I've already cleared this with the reverend. I'm not a religious person, but I want to honor my friend, and I want you to know that he really made the lives different in people in incredible ways. And as he noted, there's a student that sent a condolence in and said, I was here at GCVI, and this teacher that we remember, when I was going nowhere, thought I was stupid, put me on to particularly English. And the student said, I didn't think I was going to get through high school. Now I finished my second doctoral, and this person's a professor. And she said that if it wasn't for this teacher who taught his nephew how to curse really well, they wouldn't even be where they are today. And the condolences came in one after the other, one after the other. And I thought, this reminds me of, whether you're religious or not, whatever you might consider yourself to be, that people have a remarkable way of impacting our lives. And sometimes they're teachers. Sometimes it's somebody that greets you here at Trinity and makes sure that you find yourself safely to the place that you're hoping to be just made welcome. Or somebody makes sure the sidewalks are salted this morning. Or somebody just offers you a really warm welcome when you're having a really tough day. And you know that you're not alone. So as we journey forth in the season of Advent, I hope, like Zechariah, not that you necessarily are muted and silent the whole time, but there'll be moments that you can just have some quiet reflection and ponder your own journey and just where you're at these days. And it's not a bad thing to be silent at times. And one thing I might even challenge you to do is, because this incredible teacher that died just like that, somebody came up to me afterwards and said, I sure hope he knew what an impact he had on people's lives. And I just hope that you take a little bit of time in your journey, not for your own puffing up, I know it's not about that, but for you to reflect on how you bring a little hope to the hopeless, or a little bit of assurance when people feel pretty barren. And I guess when I go back to my friend who just hopes and prays every day that his child will be okay, that I guess my biggest hope is that he knows that, I hope he feels he's not totally alone as he might feel.